feel like we got a little more control over the technology.
Yes, I hear you.
Just ignore my background.
Why? It's adorable. It's kids' artwork.
Rob was like, you have to take everything down. And I was like, and the kids are going to make you they're going to lose their mind. You take down their
stuff. That's
art,
right.
Their art studio.
That's exactly right.
Hopefully this is the last one, for a while, or a long while.
Mike Lant. Okay, having trouble with audio. Stay tuned. Okay, I just don't see him on the screen either. Oh, I see. He's under attendees. Got it. So I believe we are now live. Is that accurate? It is. All right. It is 5:15, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Huntersville Regular Town Board meeting, and this is our pre-meeting. We will be under item 1A. We will have a presentation on social districts from North American Properties. I believe Mr. Lant is on the phone or online.
He is.
He is.
Mike, are you there? Mike, are you there? Or Larry, have you unmuted?
Okay. Mr. Lant. Unclear about the technical difficulty we're having right now.
I'm going to try texting Mayor and just see if I can catch him.
Thank you. Well, thanks to all the board for being here for the pre-meeting at 5:15 promptly. Greatly appreciated. I'm sure it's been a long, cold Monday for everyone.
Trying to find his email right now, Mayor, see if I can catch him.
Let me see if I can message. I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Okay, so we're having some struggle. He can hear us, but we cannot seem to hear him.
Mayor, if need be, I can try to go through the presentation if need be. Really here I've seen it before. I'm aware of the legislation. Maybe Emily and I can possibly tackle it. Sure, we won't do it as good a justice as him, but I could do that. It's not really, the board's not making any, decision or voting on anything. It may give us some direction, so I don't mind trying to do that.
Okay, well, since this is an informational presentation just for the board's information this evening, I guess my question to the board is, would you like to continue and move forward and allow this presentation to happen since it's informational only? If you wouldn't mind giving me a thumb or a something.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
Yes, please.
This pretty much is in the package. I read most of it.
Yeah, I do have some questions, but we can move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Kidwell. I saw a thumbs up from Commissioner Boone. I've also saw a thumbs up from Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Munger, Commissioner Kovacs. We're good. All right. Mr. Roberts, until we can get him squared away and And he said he was also okay if you presented as well. So here we go.
Unfortunately, I have done no rehearsals, so this will be winging it big time. I'm just aware of the social districts that was passed in this last session. And so this is something very new to North Carolina. This may be in other states where you see this, where you're able to have social districts in shopping areas, et cetera. And so Birkdale is probably familiar with this in other areas like in Georgia and Alpharetta, and settings where they have a mall setting, outdoor sort of venue like a Birkdale and Alpharetta at Avalon. So go back to that last slide. I'm sorry, I'll just give them a quick. So Birkdale Village is questioning Huntersville will create a social district pursuant to this new session law over in the Birkdale area. And there are statutes and various things that deal with Alcohol Beverage Control Commission laws. All right, next slide. Under this authorization, it allows the city to adopt an ordinance designating certain areas of social district. And then these districts are will be defined, and you'll see here in a little bit where you'll have to put up signage and various things to sort of establish the area. Move to the next one. And I won't read all this because this is just it's a bunch of language. You should have had this in your packet if I recall. So what you'll do is you'll set, if the board decided they want to move forward this, you would set sort of hours, you set limits. You'll see later on we talk about how you address this on certain type cups, clear cups, etc. Keep moving. So what you have in front of you here is they've created a certain signage. Obviously, staff would want to look at this if the board said move forward. This signage would have, like I say, the hours of operation. All this is addressed in the statutes of what you have to have. But this would be the limits of the social district. What you see in the blue area, I guess it would be on here, is the limits of the social district, and then it would have the hours. You have to have a phone number for the LE division, police department, and then it talks about the area defined in the social district. You will see signage around these boundaries. It won't be roped off, it won't be crowded. As you know Birkdale well enough, a lot of these areas encompass streets, so you couldn't just go cage it off or put a fence around it, etc. Keep moving. Again, it talks about the limits. This is a bigger sign. It talks about how we'd have to establish management and maintenance plans within these boundaries. And you'd have to put certain things on your website and to talk about how this protects the health and safety of the general public, shall be maintained. And then, again, this is the signage in the layout. Keep moving. So the other thing we'd have to do is submit to the commission a detailed map of the social district with the boundaries, clearly marked days of operation in this district. Same thing, signage. Keep going. All of this is just showing the various signage and the requirements we'd have to maintain. Enforcement, I think, is one of the things. I don't know if this is showing up good here, Bobby. And that green is tough to see there, but so Birkdale would, based on the restaurants, et cetera, Birkdale would endeavor to enforce these requirements. That's one thing I'm sure our police department would have some concerns about, is how do we enforce it, who enforces it, how do you maintain folks within those boundaries, et cetera. So I'm sure there's some questions there from Emily and the chief. The container that you see, this is what they're proposing. There's certain language on the cups. They have to be clear cups. It has certain language on there about obviously being 21, drink responsibly. This is all set out in the laws and what has to be on the cups and what it says, etc. Keep going, Bobby. What else? I think that's it. This is just more dealing with how the Birkdale Village will endeavor to enforce this amongst their leases. Keep going. I know that was very quick. I did not do it justice like Mike could do, I'm sure, but this is something very new in North Carolina, and Emily may jump in. I think probably the closest town that has looked at doing some type of ordinance that I'm aware of so far is Kannapolis. As you know, downtown Kannapolis, I don't know how familiar you are with they have a new baseball stadium, the town hall, and they have downtown there a section of restaurants and venues. And my understanding is they have been the first one in this area to sort of set up a social district, and Emily may chime in and tell us what they've done.
That's correct. My understanding, as of the last time I checked, was that Kannapolis is the only town that has currently adopted an ordinance regarding the social districts. Again, this is a brand new statutory grant of authority, so there's little to go by out there. We would be responsible for creating an ordinance if we were to go down this path. We would also have to revise some of our current ordinances regarding not having open containers in public streets, for instance, and carve out an exception for the social districts. We would also have to negotiate and enter into a management plan with the owners and the participants within the social district. And I think Anthony touched on the fact that the social district map would have to be sent to the commission as well. As far as the enforcement, there is a requirement, which was in the PowerPoint presentation, that the number for ALE and also the number for local law enforcement be included on the signage. The management plan would address how some of the other requirements, such as disposing of the cup before exiting the social district and preventing re-entry after exiting, would be enforced. That would largely be on Birkdale and its tenants to enforce. And perhaps any violations would be enforced jointly by local law enforcement and ALE, but that's something that would have to be addressed very clearly in the management plan.
Ms. Luke, I know that we currently have we allow the sale of beer, wine at Veterans Park currently. And there's signage that gets put up. How is this different than that?
This would be not for just a specific event, but this would be for the entire district at all times specified in the plan. So it would be on a request by request basis to create the districts, but once we've created a district, then that would open the door for other requests to come in for those districts.
And Mayor, just to jump on that, also you'll see where certain restaurants and venues may have like a one-day permit, or they'll get a special permit to expand their boundaries outside of maybe the restaurant for special occasions. But this would be continuously throughout the year.
Okay. Open it up for any dialogue and questions. I think I heard Commissioner Kidwell said he had a few questions, so I would like to start with him.
Well, unfortunately, the presenter is not able to answer these, but maybe Anthony, you can. How are we going to deter underage drinking? We're all kids at one point. We're all wanted to, have a dad's beers or whatever, so they can just find a cup, go in, they got a cup. Are we going to give, bans out? Are they going to be banded adults, the ban that says you're over 21?
So my understanding, Commissioner Kidwell, and obviously don't hold me to it because it's very new, but they have to be able to have alcohol. You have to be able to have that cup, that particular cup that has, Birkdale Village, 21, etc. Everything has to go in that cup. Now, the question may be, pull a couple cups out of the trash can, I don't know, and wash them out and take them home. I don't know if I can't answer whether that cup routinely changes. I may have my liquor bottle in my pocket, pour it in a cup while I'm out in the parking lot. I think about those things too, but I don't have a good answer for that.
And like I said, the person who is presenting this is unable to speak on that, but I think the board should consider that. I was pretty, I won't say wild as a youth, but if something was presented like this to me, I would find ways to get a cup so I could go grab a cheap natural light from someplace, because now obviously my tastes have expanded since then, so I'd be looking for Busch Light or Miller Light now instead of natural light. Then I guess the other question is kind of and you probably can't answer this, Anthony, so I hate asking you, but looking at the map, these things kind of veer off into our parking decks in there. What's to stop, or how are they going to, and they can answer this later, but how are they going to control adults who are like, what, I'm not paying $9 for a drink at Red Rocks. I'll sneak some mini bottles in, just keep refilling my cup. I'll go to my car and just, pull a fifth out, fill it back up, swing back out there to the festivities. How are they, what's their plan on that?
I think that's
all good questions. I'm sure Mike is listening. So hopefully we can, those type questions, I think we'll make sure that hopefully he's jotting notes down and he can answer these questions.
And obviously I'm asking these questions from experience, probably on the other side there. So thanks,
Anthony.
No,
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Partee. I did see Commissioner Kovacs' hand up first. Commissioner Kovacs.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I know we have the police phone number on the signs that would be posted, but I would assume we're going to need a lot more patrolling around the area just to make sure things are being enforced correctly. And with our manpower in the police department being spread a little thin, how do we go about covering that? And would Burkdale be responsible for paying for that, or is that part of a patrol area?
So one of the things, and Emily can jump in, Chief may be listening on this too, but one of the things we've talked about is enforcement. Now, Burkdale does have their own security. Obviously we have police. One of the things we can look at is, and one of the things I think maybe Emily and the Chief looked at when they took a first look at this, was the whole enforcement issue of whether Burkdale enforces it. More of the enforcement from like patrolling the perimeters, making sure kids are, not washing the cup out of the trash can and putting beer in, those kind of things. That's something we've talked about, but before we got too far in the weeds on that kind of stuff, we kind of wanted Mike to do the presentation and then kind of just see where it goes. And so he's listening. I saw his note on here where he's on the chat where he's taking notes to help address some of these.
Commissioner Partee.
Oh yeah, having experience working with the New York State Liquor Authority, most of your venues that sell liquor or have a liquor license, specifically those that are in Burkdale, they will be responsible for carding anybody that they issue or pour drinks to. Now, once they walk out of the venue, then they're not going to be held harmless. But I would think also, conferring with Commissioner Kovacs, that Chief Hoyle should be on this call, because there might be a possibility we might need a satellite, and I have down here, a satellite command post somewhere near or around Burkdale, where we have extra security or extra police officers that would might patrol. Because as you know, when you have alcohol and people drinking alcohol, you're going to have not a lot, but there'll be some incidents of alcohol disorderly conduct. Did I lose everybody?
No, you didn't. We're hearing you. I don't know if you're freezing, but I will tell you, Commissioner Partee. Yes, you're still here.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware, we do have a satellite space in Burkdale, so that our officers are routinely rotating through there as well. And I think these are all great questions.
Right, I see the vehicles, of course.
Right, that Mr. Lant can gather all of your questions and be able to come back and present this maybe again and answer more of those questions at another time. Commissioner Boone, do you have any questions at this point?
I do. How are we going to handle overserved? If I go into establishment A and get a little bit tipsy and walk out into the next place, I just have one drink, get in an accident, that last person I would think would be liable. So that'd be one question I would like to hear about how they're going to handle overserving. But I'll wait till the people from Burkdale get our communication here a little bit better.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, thanks. I do have a couple questions and comments. I realize I'm not going to get answers to these questions, I guess. Are the cups themselves actually recyclable? And is it possible that they might be putting in place, if they are recyclable, something to recycle these particular cups might also help account for all of the cups? Wanted to follow up on something Commissioner Kidwell says. I actually like the idea of banding people. If they're over 21, they have a band, they have the cup. It's a no-brainer. If you don't have the band and you have a cup, then you get to question that person. Do we anticipate this, and this may be Anthony or staff in general, do we anticipate this occurring in any other locations in the town?
We haven't had any requests yet. And like I said, this request came from Burkdale. This is not Anthony, Emily, Chief. This is a Burkdale request. This is the only one that we know of so far, but like I say, this is brand new statute.
Okay, cool. And just wanted to plant a bug. You probably already thought about it, but when we did the event type of situation for Hunter House, we set it up so that they would have to have, I believe, off-duty police officer or something there for events to offset that cost for us. I would encourage us to seek a similar path with Burkdale Village. That's all.
Okay.
Commissioner Phillips?
Is Chief on? Chief, are you online? I was going to see if Chief was on here. He told me he texted me and said he was on, so I don't know if he's on here where he could maybe answer some questions too on enforcement and things like that.
Chief is under the attendees, so if he could be pulled off and put under the panelists, that might be helpful.
Maybe Larry can make that happen.
I will say I am, as we're waiting to see if we can pull him over, since they have experience with this in other locations, I think some of the best practices across their projects, I'm sure they'll be able to answer a lot of these questions because we can't be the only ones asking them. I'm sure they've come up in the past in other places. So I'll be interested to hear a lot of their, how they've handled all of these questions that you've asked thus far. Hey, Chief, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you are.
I am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You had a lot of questions in here.
Yeah, I've been taking notes.
You too.
Yeah, I will say that, there is concern about the enforcement, as Ms. Kovacs brought up, and some of you others. There's a couple ways to handle that. Typically, in dealing with just a business, it's an off-duty employment type of situation, and the business owner would pay for it, or it depends on the situation. So the issue with that is all off-duty is voluntary. We cannot compel anybody to work off-duty, and we can, but we just pay them time and a half if we make them work. So the issue comes up is how do we sustain this over a longer period? One of the things, I've been doing some research this week about social districts in other areas, other states, and talked to the Chiefs Association about it. And one common way is to create a tax for this district. And we'd have to figure out what that is, and it would be just enough to cover the cost of, ongoing enforcement. We could use on-duty staff or off-duty staff or whatever we could. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. That's one thing to consider. I do think if you look at the proposed language, there is probably 12 different items that have to be enforced by somebody. And some of those seem to be specifically related to police about, consumption and things like that. So I do recommend we try to figure out a way to fund it. I'm going to end up coming and asking you for people anyway if it gets to be too much. And if we have 5 or 6 of these districts across town in time, it could get to be an issue. The good news is, I think if we start enforcing it from the beginning, we can deter a lot of that. But I can tell you, people will absolutely go find a cup and find any way they can to manipulate that situation. That's just human nature. I do want to make one comment that Mr. Munger brought up about the special situation we have with the business where they have to have a police officer on duty. I would not recommend going that way. In fact, we would probably need to re-look at that particular situation because, again, off-duty employment is voluntary. And the only way for us to meet that requirement is to take an officer off the street and send them down there to stand by, for that. I understand why that was done. It was done to try to make sure enforcement was there, but there may be a better way to do that than the particular language that's in there. But I will tell you, generally, social districts, I think are not problematic as far as, creating crime situations. It does help walkability and it helps revitalization, but there is an enforcement piece to it that we have to figure out how to get right.
Chief, have you had conversations with Birkdale Village about this specifically?
No, I have not.
So I think that probably would be a good idea to sit down and see how they're doing it in other places as well, because you might get some ideas that would be beneficial too.
Yeah, I've researched around the state. There's about, I would say at least a dozen, maybe 24 cities that's in the same progress that we are. They're considering it. They're going through public hearings. They're doing that. So I think this is coming. It's just a matter of how we address it up front.
Right. Any other questions, folks? Commissioner Partee?
Chief, real quick, what's the procedure if, in fact, a officer who's working off duty gets involved with an arrest? Does he automatically become on duty at that time, or is he still off duty and is he paid? What is the procedure when it comes to that?
So that's a good question. Typically, when they make an arrest, that they will become on duty at that point because, the workers' comp and all that comes into play as well. But they can remain off duty if we got officers there to help them and take over it and that thing. But we can do that either way. I think the advantage of having, right now we can cover about 20 to 30% of our off duty. We have a lot of off duty, much more requests than we got people to handle. And, we pull people from the Sheriff's Department and Charlotte and Cornelius and anybody else who wants to work down here. We will pass that off duty to them, but we still don't cover it all. So I think, in this situation, it's not a special event, it's ongoing. We need to figure out a sustainable model to be able to make sure we can cover it. And I don't think it's going to take much, maybe an officer on bikes, maybe 2 on the weekends. I don't think it's going to be terrible to cover. It's just, there's going to be times if we don't figure it out that we're not going to be able to cover it. We just won't have the people available. So I really worry about big events that happen. If we have a big event like we had this week and all of a sudden I've got, 12 officers on one crime scene trying to sort things out, and I don't have anybody, to meet that obligation. So.
Commissioner Phillips, you had a question as well. I saw your hand up.
Yes. So the signage, I see that it's like the 3 spots. I think that it would probably be more ideal to have it on the interiors of the parking deck so that when people exit, they are aware of the rules already in place with the time and the locations, because I can hear the excuses of, oh, I didn't see the sign, So that could help alleviate some of the issues. And then also putting them outside of each establishment that will be participating in that. So when you walk in, the expectations that are set upon you. I feel like that could help alleviate some issues. And then I know everybody keeps bringing up underage drinking, but let me tell you, Birkdale opened when I was in high school and nothing has changed except kids use Starbucks cups and they still do. However, I feel like the town has been responsible with changing age requirements, and the people over Birkdale have gotten a little bit more, and I don't want to say aggressive because that's not the right word, but they're more mindful of having younger people around and having their own staff on hand to handle issues. So I don't really see that, because the thing is, if you're inside drinking, outside drinking, there's always going to end up being something. And luckily for us, we don't have as many issues as some other towns. But I do think we need to have the chief involved in these conversations, because that kind of experience and the what ifs, I think, are really critical. But I think this could be promising to help Huntersville, I don't know, not maybe become more of a little vacation area. And I have faith in people that they will drink responsibly. And I think this helps even normalize that one beer walking around isn't weird. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses over time.
Commissioner Bidwell.
What about 2 beers walking around? Is that still considered normal?
I mean, if you're carrying both in 2 hands, who am I to judge about what kind of day you've had?
All right. Any other discussion around this topic? Well, seeing none, we have 15 minutes. So if you would like to mute, turn off your video, and we will resume at 6 o'clock. Before we do that, I believe I was supposed to do a roll call. Well, everybody's disappeared on me. So we'll just do our roll call at 6 o'clock. See you then.